Crash on the beat.
Paper chaser.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Chop It Up with JP. I'm your host, JP Wiyafi. And real quick, I just want to take this time and allow you to breathe, to kind of just relax, and just kind of listen to what I got to share with you for these next couple of minutes. So whatever you're doing right now, whether you're driving home, you're just chilling in your room, I appreciate you listening. And I'm glad that I have you in the room. I have your attention. And I'm so glad to get in this with y'all. First off, I hope everybody had a good Juneteenth. It's a special holiday in the black community. All get to celebrate and commemorate our emancipation, on paper. And I hope everybody had a great Father's Day. That's also a special day, especially in the black community for a lot of the black fathers. So for those of you that don't know what Juneteenth is a celebration and commemorance of the day that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into effect, therefore deeming every slave freed as of June 19th, 1865. Now, on that day, that's when the federal troops, arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people were freed. Now, obviously, they didn't catch everybody, but that's exactly what happened 155 years ago. So this marks the 155th year that slavery has been abolished within the United States to date. So I do believe that Juneteenth is a great day for all of us to remember, to spread awareness, to be proud of ourselves, and more so proud of our ancestors, and so thankful and grateful to them for all of the suffering and pain that they had endured, and instilling in us strong values and morals and willpower. I think that that's the greatest thing that our ancestors have extended down to us. But anyway, I hope everybody had a great, awesome, wonderful, amazing Father's Day. Or at least as best as you could have. But I'm going to just get into the show. Like I said, I appreciate y'all tuning in. And, I'm just going to take this time and really introduce the show to y'all. I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about myself. And I'm going to just dive into it. So, like I said again, my name is JP Wiyafi. I am a transferring student going into UC Riverside starting this fall. I am a public policy major. I'm thinking about double majoring or minoring in poli-sci, so we'll see how that journey goes. But I'm going to tell y'all a little bit about myself. I was born in East LA to an immigrant family. My parents were from Ghana, only American born in my family, and it's just an interesting experience just coming up. We moved from East LA basically in 2005 or so, 2006. And we bounced around until we ended up in Orange County after that. And as a young kid, all you get used to is what you see on the TV. That'll eventually, you don't notice it at first, but it'll begin to shape the way that you see certain parts of childhood, one, certain parts of your environment, two, and certain parts of your world, three. And, I think that speaks to the greater control of the media and how that plays a part in how you grow up, how you are as a child, and how it affects your perspective and your outlook. But anyway, attending predominantly white institutions for much of my education obviously led me to believe a lot of things that weren't true about my culture, about myself, about my family. And there are a lot of things that I used to say just to, try and fit in and be cool, just so I can assimilate to other people. And, I do regret it, obviously, because that just further emphasizes the fact that I didn't have any confidence and I didn't have any pride in my culture. And it's really unfortunate, but I'm glad that, I realized that, and then I swayed myself. I was able to mature and have lots of introspective work that I did from that point. You know what I'm saying? It's never okay, especially growing up as a young man or young woman, to assimilate or have to break down some of the things that make yourself so that you can fit in to society, essentially. And that can take many forms, but I'm speaking more so towards your culture, your race, your ethnicity. But anyway, that's actually a really important point that I want to emphasize before I move on along the story. So some of the things that I began to take interest in when I was a kid, basketball, football, soccer, I even watched some sports like hockey, tennis. When I was a child, I used to racialize sports. So I used to think that football was pretty much just for black people. Because the only people that you saw in that was dominating the field at that time were black people. You know what I'm saying? Randy Moss, Chad Ochocinco, Ray Lewis. Man, the list can go on, man. Especially when I was a kid. Anyway, I used to also think that basketball was predominantly a black sport too. Seeing Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, dominate the court with Shaq. It was just a crazy thing seeing Shaq, dunk and then breaking the backboard. You know what I'm saying? That's just, blew my mind when I was a kid. Still does to this day. Putting a certain kind of people into a certain sport didn't just teach me, that we had athletic capabilities and that we were capable of doing great things as it relates to sports. But as I grew and mature, I started to realize that you rarely saw a black coach or you rarely saw a black GM. Sure as hell didn't see no black owners. You know what I mean? And I think that that's really important. Speaks to the kind of society we're in. In the entertainment industry, I'm sure you'll find many blacks. And, shout out to those that paved the way, that came before our generation, so that we could have a better time transitioning into these kind of roles and positions. But all due respect, 32 teams in each league, if I'm not mistaken. I think in NFL there's 32 teams. In NBA there's 34, if I'm not mistaken. And in each of those respective leagues, there's still no black owners. And I believe there's one black GM, maybe two. And that's a problem. That's a problem, you know what I'm saying? They profit off of lots of African American folk. You know what I'm saying? People of color, for that matter. So, all of these things started to teach me an invaluable lesson. That when you're born into a system like this, you gotta work 3 times as hard, 5 times as smarter, 10 times as efficiently. But anyway, growing up in a predominantly white area, you don't really see too many people that look like you, especially in the educational landscape. K through 12, I never had a black teacher or a guide or instructor or anything like that. I did have one black substitute, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in like the 8th grade. It was like 7th or 8th grade. We had a black substitute. He was real cool, getting his things done. And I guess he had made a mistake in our class, and that single mistake, I think it was like something that we weren't that I don't know. I think it was like a chapter that we were supposed to read in the book, and we covered the wrong thing. But anyway, my teacher had gotten so mad that essentially that substitute was never able to teach in the entire district ever again. So beyond that, I think I had a black professor who taught paralegal classes at Fullerton College, and I think she herself was also paralegal. Very smart, brilliant woman. First day of class, awesome. Laid it down, told us about her experience, and then she had one little encounter with a student, and the student had some remarks, and the teacher was like, she was just not having it. So she called her out, and then they had like a little exchange of words. Long story short, the student was no longer in the classroom, and the professor was no longer in the classroom. Anyway, diving a little deeper, when I was in high school, I didn't really think that race played too much of a part in where I came up, learning about myself. I'm not really sure if anybody can relate, but growing up in an African household, it's all about grinding. If you don't produce them grades, if you don't have straight A's with very little wiggle room for anything other than an A or a B, you was pretty much seen as a failure or dumb or I don't think there's pretty much any other box that they would just label you under, and that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? There's no real room for identity building, and there's no real room for you to be able to critically analyze yourself, maybe see what's wrong, and take the necessary steps to move forward from that. Real strict household, and I'm glad that I was born into it, and the culture really taught me a lot, but it didn't teach me too much about myself. Coming up my freshman and sophomore year, I think my cumulative GPA was like a solid 1.2, and you can imagine, you know what I'm saying? Like if you an African student right now and you listening to this, I'm pretty sure, you know what I'm saying? You know just how bad that is. And I'm telling you, them whoopings was coming in hot. My parents was handing them out like it was free. You know what I'm saying? And it was free. Only thing that it cost me was my peace. And the interesting part about that is, even after all the yellings and the whoopings and all that, nothing really changed. You know what I'm saying? My mentality didn't change. My environment didn't change. Nothing changed. The grades were still bad. My parents were still mad. And now keep in mind, there's very clear reasons why I'm failing and I'm getting these terrible grades in school. And they weren't, just, I'm not understanding the material or anything like that. I was that kid that would ask questions in class. Sometimes pay attention to what the teacher is saying, get the work done, but I wouldn't do the homework when I got home, or I would like lose my stuff, not be able to turned in late assignments. That was like my MO. Late assignments, late, you know what I'm saying? And some teachers, they had that policy where even if you do turn in a late assignment, by the time you find it, it'll be marked down to like 50 possible points that you can get on a paper. You know what I'm saying? That was me. I was that one student that was smart, brilliant, able to answer questions in class, and was failing. And that's like the worst mix. You know what I'm saying? You really got to learn how to open up that area of your mind to the follow through point. You know what I'm saying? You can have, I'm going to give y'all an example. If you are a basketball player and you coming off the bench, and you trying to get your minutes up, you know, because you know you can do it, you know you have superstar potential, you're not going to be getting more minutes just setting good screens and playing good defense. You know what I'm saying? You got to attack the rim. You got to, you know, if you don't know how to shoot, you don't have a shot, get a shot. You know what I'm saying? Get them assists up, get them rebounds up. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, it's a stats game. And that's exactly what education is, a stats game. That's why every time you want to transfer, they got to look at your transcripts. They look at your personal records, your details, your resumes, whatnot. If you go for a job right now, what do they want? Resume. You go to any place that you want access to, what do they need? Stats. You know what I'm saying? They want to know what you can produce. How effective are you in any sort of system that you're placed into? You know what I'm saying? So dealing with that for me was a really tough thing, in the sense that the follow through was never there, because I didn't know, one, what the incentive of the follow through was, and two, how that was going to translate for the immediate returns. And as a child, everybody, I'm telling you, every child wants immediate returns. I'm going to repeat it right now, real slowly, so y'all can hear me. Every child wants the immediate returns. When you're young, you look at what's right in front of you and not what's beyond. And it's been demonstrated time and time and again. Now, if that wasn't true, every time that a child went with a parent to, let's say, like Target, and I'm sure y'all have seen this, they go to the store, they start saying, ooh, I want this one. But if the parent's struggling, or, you know, just not trying to buy that toy right now, very rarely do you ever, I mean, like, not even very rarely, you never see a kid say, oh, okay, all right, next month then, or maybe next year. Like, nah, bro, they about to turn up, start crying, and, you know, that's that. But that's, you know, just, that's what naivety looks like. You know what I'm saying? That's what immaturity and inexperience and just plain ignorance, that's what it looks like. And that's exactly what was transpiring in my life, you know. But I say all that to say that you can change your circumstance. You know, it doesn't matter how bleak things are looking in the immediate future. If you put the work into yourself right now as you stand, I promise you, you put the work in, you have faith, you believe in yourself, and you stay consistent and become that highly motivated individual that you were born to be, the world cannot stop you. Small problems and hiccups, they won't be able to stop you. They'll be able to deter you for maybe a moment in time, but things literally can't stop you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you'll start to notice that you are such an efficient individual that even you can't stop you unless you cause yourself to fail. I hope y'all can understand kind of where I'm coming from that. You can become your own greatest or your own worst enemy, and you are single-handedly and solely responsible for bringing yourself down. You know what I mean? And I started to notice that right around my junior and my senior year. That's when that's when I really started to notice that the difference between me, who was a failing student, and whoever was passing the class is, one, they didn't have to deal with all of the psychological problems that I dealt with coming into the classroom, coming into a new environment, coming into a space where I know I'm not represented, and where I know that I stick out like a sore thumb. My junior year and my senior year, I really started getting into exploring my capabilities as an athlete. I always wanted to get into a sport. I always wanted to play, but ain't no way I was about to play because my grades were trash. But my junior year, I was like, you know what? Not anymore, man. I'm about to like get into some sports. I'm gonna do something. And that was pretty much the only incentive for me to do well in school, was so that I could stay eligible for the sport rules. And I really regret I regretted my entire high school year pretty much after, or my high school education, like from that point on. You know what I'm saying? Because I realized that it took sports for me to start doing well. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? I was capable of doing this entire time, and I was really even more mad because I had done so poorly in school in my first and second year that I was doing summer school like every summer pretty much after my sophomore year. So that was like garbage, trash, right? Like, why the hell would I even do that to myself? But anyway, you live and you learn. I'm getting, these grades, and I'm thinking to myself, I am completely capable of doing bigger and better. I know that I can do it. Why is it that I'm not following through? So yeah, that's essentially what high school looked like for me as far as the intellectual academic side for me. And as it stands today, I completely regret high school, in the sense that I didn't learn anything, I really didn't learn, outside of maybe learning how to write better. I didn't learn anything. I really didn't. I didn't learn anything from any class except for maybe the arts. Even that, like, I failed every single art class. I failed every single science class. You know what I'm saying? It's not the fact that the content was going over my head. It's the fact that the content was useless, and nobody is really going to tell you that. I think maybe mathematics is probably the most useful subject that you can cover in high school, because anything else besides, aside from math, you most likely will not use. Math and science, for that matter. You maybe English, and depending on whoever your history teacher is for much of your high school educational career, you won't learn anything. You really won't. You know what I'm saying? I think it's a huge part of our education system. It's really faulty. How is it that you're going to miss out on an entire section of African success? Explain that to me. How is it that the start of African civilization started with slavery? But I want you to look deep down within yourself and look within your education system, barring that you haven't already done the education yourself. Please explain to me how black people first originated. Like, I genuinely want to know. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how the narrative is intentionally painted within our education system. You know what I'm saying? From Jump Street, we're taught that we didn't know anything, we didn't know any better, and we were just swinging across the trees in the sweaty jungles of Zimbabwe. And the only great African civilization was Egypt, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? That's a problem. That's a problem. And for a long time, those were some of the things that I inherited. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are some of the beliefs that I started to take on. Like, oh, we weren't, that great. You know what I'm saying? We didn't have technological advancements. We didn't have education. But nobody ever taught me about Angela Davis until I went out and did research about her. Nobody told me about Kwame Ture. Nobody told me about Mansa Musa. You know what I'm saying? Nobody told me about Fannie Lou Hamer. I mean, come on. Assata Shakur. You feel me? I had to go out personally and do the research myself on these awesome individuals, and I also had to do my own research on African kingdoms and countries just so I could understand our excellence before colonialism and before the transatlantic slave trade. And that's a problem. Now, I'm at this point now, I'm 21 years old. I've come to that realization maybe a couple years ago, but think about the vast majority of individuals across the American landscape and how the outlook is ultimately going to be moving forward. You know what I'm saying? It's a real problem, and nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to sit down and address it. But as a society, we got to do better. You know what I mean? You can't sit back and relax and wait for somebody who doesn't look like you to tell you just how great you are and tell you how much royalty and power you have if it's not their job to do that, first off. So based on what you find out, it's up to you what you're then going to do with that information. You know what I'm saying? How are you going to move after that? What types of actions are you going to be taking now that you have amassed this newfound knowledge? It's like, what is that going to look like? And a lot of people still don't know. You know what I'm saying? And this is exactly what I mean when I'm saying as a society, as a culture, as a people, we got to do better. Just because we can't be expecting somebody else to do better for us, and that's a big thing, just with our current times. One thing that we got to start looking at as a society, as a culture, is who's going to be carrying the water. It can't be the same people just doing the work over and over again and spreading ourselves thin and not being able to embrace each other as brothers and sisters. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me, about my outlook. Now, some of the things that I got into, I guess I'll talk about college. When I first came on to Fullerton College, I didn't really know what to expect. You know what I'm saying? Up to that time, my mom, shout out to my mom one time. Man, she is the ultimate queen, the most influential pillar in my life. Love you. I had gone there because my mom was also trying to get her AA. And big shout out to her. From that point, I think that was like in 2016. Now she has a bachelor's, currently getting her master's in higher education. So I'm extremely proud of her. And she showed me the ropes when I first got into Fullerton College. She got me registered. She got me taking classes. I was ready to get into my education, like big time. I was ready to really learn what this college thing was about. Because prior to that point, you're taught, or not taught, but you're basically told, like, if you don't do well in high school, you can't get into college, and beyond that, you might as well just join the military or go get a job somewhere and hope to become an apprentice and make money that way. But I refuse that narrative, and it has worked wonders for me. I'm so grateful, like I said, for my mom, because she's one single person that really believed in me and saw my potential for what it really was. And I thank God for my mom's life big time. I can't stop gushing about her. I love her so much. But anyway, when I first got onto a Fullerton College campus, I didn't know how getting there was going to be because I didn't have any friends at that point. I couldn't really approach any of the students there because during that time, man, I think I was like 16. I think I was like 16 or 17. I graduated high school real young. So by the time that I was getting acquainted with the, Fullerton College campus, everybody was, 20, 21, 24. You know what I'm saying? You can't just go up 16-year-old kid talking about some, oh yeah, it was good. Nah, it's levels. It's levels to this. So, the only place that I did actually find some, I guess, solace, if you will, is the Umoja Center. And I met a whole bunch of dope people, and I'm really glad that, I was able to find them. But I'm also glad that I didn't stop the journey there. Making that single step of walking in. And shout out to Dr. Bridges for telling me about the Umoja Room too. I walked in there, and you know what I'm saying. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but something in me just caught fire. I knew that there were greater things that were destined for me, provided that I stay and be consistent in this center. And this center was small, man. When I first walked in, it was just a small little place. You studied in there, and then on Fridays they had like an open, I think it was like an hour or like whatever, but it's nowhere near, for those of you who attend Fullerton College, it's nowhere near what it is today. And I was a part of that change, you know what I'm saying? Establishing that new culture on campus of Black excellence and Black scholarly professionalism, you know what I'm saying? Like different things that it is today. I mean, we held like awesome, great workshops, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad that I stayed humble during the entire process, even more so now, you know what I'm saying? I've made so many strides in towards that field of education that now I'm in a position like I never would have imagined that I would have been in coming straight out of high school. You know what I'm saying? Especially, I'm not going to lie. When I came out of high school, man, I was a coon. Straight up. I mean, how could I not be? You feel me? Coming out of an environment in which I did, like, yeah, I mean, obviously, you're going to be believing some things that are entirely false and based on hearsay. And I'm so glad that we're in an age where information is at the tips of your fingers. We all have like mediums of technology where we're able to have access to things that you never would have known. And you don't know about what you have access to until you become curious about those things. And generally, you can find what you're looking for. All you have to do is just be willing to put the time in. And I'm really glad that I'm on this path now to where I know there's a whole bunch of work to be done, for me, physically, emotionally, spiritually, but also as a leader in my community. I know that there's so much that I got to do, that I literally got to propel myself and make sure that every goal that I set for myself, even if I fall short, I don't stay down. That's the most important part. That's the key thing for me. I'll tell you a little bit of a story. When I was in the 6th grade, I think that was the year. Yeah. When I was in 6th grade, that was the year that Michael Jackson had passed away. Rest in peace. And I was really starting to discover who Michael Jackson was. Up to that time, I didn't know who he was. I didn't know that he was this influential artist and one of the probably the greatest entertainer of human history. I really didn't know who he was, but I really started to learn how to dance like him. And I know, like, those of y'all that know me now, you know for sure I don't be dancing like no Michael Jackson. But look it up. Whoever knew me back in 6th grade, you can confirm. I was really getting into his artistic expression and what exactly he meant in his dancing and his singing and his visuals. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I remember I was watching the video of one of his first performances of Billie Jean at an awards show. And as he's performing, you know, he's killing it, singing Billie Jean. And it gets to a certain part of the video where he first does the moonwalk. And he does it, you know, he looks left, he looks right. And then he does a dance move. And then, boom, immediately he does the moonwalk. And it blows everybody's mind. Everybody's like, oh my goodness, what? Like, yo, that's crazy. He does the moonwalk, right? Now, if you look at the moonwalk, you break it down and you look at him performing this dance move, he looks like he's walking forward, but he's moving backwards. Think about that one more time. He looks like he's moving forward. His feet are moving forward, but he's moving backwards. When you watch that and you break it down, you'll like marvel. You know what I'm saying? Your mind would be blown. That it's gonna blow your mind. Like, I don't know why I keep saying it like that, but it's amazing. You know what I'm saying? I can't even cap. Every time I see him do the moonwalk, I'm always thinking like, wow, that's crazy. Only because the function of movement, especially when you're going when you're going forward, is not to move backward. The purpose of movement when you're going forward is to go forward. If you want to move backwards, then you walk backwards. If you want to move to the side, then you walk to the side. You know what I'm saying? The same concept applies to your life. You can't be making moves that you think or make it look like you're moving forward, but in actuality, you're moving backwards. That would be so dangerous, not just for the people around you who are depending on you, but to yourself. The fact that you are really actively moving, but the moves that you're making are not propelling you forward. They're taking you back. Now, once you take an introspective look towards yourself and you really, take a look in the mirror, you'll start to think, damn, I am moonwalking. And, it's not going to be as, dramatic as that. When you realize the moves that you're making aren't pushing you forward, it'll really blow your mind. You know what I'm saying? You'll realize just how much you're wasting time and how much you've really been fooling yourself and playing yourself this whole time. You know what I'm saying? Like, there really needs to be like a shift in how you move beyond that point. So that's just a little bit of an analogy that I wanted to share with y'all. That's one thing that I know that I've been looking in on myself and, constantly revising and doing things, trying to do things better for that matter. But yeah, I think that that's a really important thing for all of us to, consider is are the things that we're doing now, like, how is that going to make you a better person tomorrow or the next week or the next month or the next years or 10 years? You know what I'm saying? What kind of investments are you making into yourself to make yourself a better version of you? So just some things for y'all to reflect. Right before I end this, though, I really want to say a big thank you to everybody that's been supporting me, that's been there since day one. I've really been trying to get this podcast off the ground for several months now, and it's just now starting to pick up. It's a big shout out to God, and shout out to everybody that's been supporting me through this process. So with that being said, I hope you all do like this episode. We will be getting into more things soon. Hopefully with enough traction, I can start to get my content out to Spotify and Apple Music, and on podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, so that y'all can listen on any medium. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. Real quick, next week we're going to be getting into a couple of events that have been occurring this year, starting with the death of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. We're going to be dissecting exactly what kind of processes the law needed to take before we saw any sort of conviction, and why the systems have been slow up to that point. Because let's face it, these deaths, not even the deaths, these killings, these blatant killings were unanswered for a long time, longer than they should have been. So we're going to be getting into that. I really appreciate y'all listening. Real quick, if y'all could give me a like, if you could maybe share this or subscribe to my channel. And I hope to see y'all sometime soon. Y'all take care, stay blessed, and thank you for chopping it up with JP.